That's why Matt and I say it all the time. And I say that all the time, and no one knows what it's from other than Matt. So the fact that you just repeated it right now, I was like, wait.
Hello and welcome to the only podcast where we wonder where the other 4 members are every time we hear an echo. I'm Matt.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Max.
And this is Force for Thought.
I didn't read that beforehand. I didn't know that was coming. I liked it.
Yeah. I was expecting you to be like, that was so dumb to come up with an alt.
No. Well, it was dumb, but that's the point of them, right? That's good. That's good.
All right. With the Bad Batch Season 2 recently ending, we thought we would take a dive in to discuss the Bad Batch members ranked. Mine have vastly changed from Season 1, I guess from the Clone Wars to Season 1 of Bad Batch to Season 2 of Bad Batch. And so now that that's kind of donezo, we can dive in. Does anybody want to go? Am I stumbling too much? I'm stumbling too much. I prefer
I have no
reading
idea
the
if
other
these are going to
side.
be similar or different. I feel like I picked mine not arbitrarily, but I just did whatever felt right. And the more I think about it, the more I'm cementing myself in my own thoughts. But I have no idea. But I'll go ahead and start with my number 6 member of the Bad Batch.
Wait, let's go through criteria first, real quick.
Oh, criteria.
Yeah, let's do criteria. What's your criteria, Maxwell?
Oh boy. All right, here we go.
Yes.
A lot of different things. One, starting with the most vain aesthetic. You got to look cool. You got to look sick.
Aesthetic. That's something I didn't
They all
even
have
consider.
different armors. What?
I did not.
I think I know what
I
your
picked
number
mine
one
almost
pick
entirely
is.
off of
You
the aesthetic.
absolutely do.
So I'm gonna push back really hard and say that aesthetic had nothing to do with that pick. We'll get there. We'll get there. Aesthetic. That was one of the criteria.
I definitely factored that in.
How dynamic the character is. If they're like a little one note, there's a couple characters that I enjoy, but they kind of do the same thing over and over
yeah.
again. You get the idea how much they contribute to the story,
Yeah.
how much the story is about them.
Character development.
Yeah, character development and like the quality of their episodes, because like in Clone Wars, which I absolutely love, you always get those episodes where you're like, oh crap, this is a droid story.
Yeah.
Colonel
Like the next 3
Gascon.
episodes. Yeah, exactly. Or like Padme and Jar Jar go off on an adventure and
Yes.
you're just like, all right, gotta suffer through this for like 3 episodes or so. And there's the Bad Batch is usually all together, but there's instances where they're apart, and so sometimes that kind of factors into it too.
But my criteria, I guess, in general is who I want to watch consistently and who I like and who is not necessarily one note. I think you kind of hit all those points. I guess I didn't consider how cool anybody is. I definitely did in Clone Wars and in Season 1, though. But anyway, Luke, let's get back to your your top. And we're obviously including Omega and Crosshair and Echo and Tech in this.
All have a reason not to be, but we're including all of them. Yes. I'll get started with the bottom of my list, number 6. And when I was making this, I thought it was interesting because after Season 1, I think I had almost the exact inverse of my list now after Season 2.
Interesting.
That is interesting. I feel like mine hasn't changed at all.
Really?
I feel like
'Cause-
as the show went on, it only solidified.
Well, I'll
Mine-
say Season 1,
mine
I
changed for
loved
sure.
Hunter, but now he was my least favorite. I felt like he had the least to offer. He was just he didn't have much development, I didn't think, and I wasn't bored when he was on screen because he was the one like physically progressing the plot,
Yes.
like making decisions, but he wasn't making like personal character decisions. Like I feel like he was making the show's decisions, not his characters.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. He is like the device to move not even the story forward, but the missions forward
Like
consistently.
the physical people.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Because like Hunter, for me, he's definitely dropped down as well for me. I think in general he's really cool. He looks literally like Rambo, and he has his senses. I think are really cool. But I always consistently am like, wait, what does he do? Like, I
Right,
know it's like
yes.
tracking, but then he could also hear things, so he's kind of got like a spidey sense.
Mhm.
He has definitely dropped for me as well, especially Season 2, and that is something that like in Season 1 I was like. In Clone Wars, he's like, yes, this is the leader. He's cool, right? Season 1, I was like, oh, he doesn't really do much, but he's still very cool, and he looks cool. But then in Season 2, I think it did for me solidify kind of his role. Anyway, that is not my number 6. So
Well, that being said, we did talk about how we're including aesthetics in our ranking, and I do think that Hunter had the biggest glow up from Season 1 to Season 2. I think his redesign, he looks the coolest now.
his redesigns are cool.
Scarf? Hello.
I didn't notice anyone's redesigns until Tech. And it was like mostly through the second season where I was like, whoa, Tech looks totally different. And I was like, oh, they all do.
Yep, a lot of orange, a lot of blues.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that was your number 6?
Yeah.
Was Hunter? Okay.
Maxwell.
I can't argue too much with that. My number 6 was Wrecker. I think aesthetically, he's not the prettiest thing to look at. His armor's kind of basic. His helmet is kind of like, okay, whatever. Like he's got like the big I don't know, teeth or whatever.
He's like a
you want on
gorilla,
it.
kind of, right? Like, is
Yeah.
that what he's
I
going
mean,
for?
he's just the tank in any tabletop RPG.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly, and that's kind of why it's like it's. You've seen it before. You know what
Yeah.
he is.
he provides
he's
an important
dim.
purpose to the team, but
Yeah, he's strong. He's the dumb strong one.
season 1, he was great with like the big brother role to Omega.
Yes.
I was really interested because he was like the most not invested because they all really cared for her, but he was the most, he had the most personal relationship with Omega in season 1, I
Yes.
thought. And then in season 2, I thought that kind of never came up again.
Which is weird because I think they.
You don't think that ever came up again?
Well, I think.
I think
No,
in this
not
most
really.
recent season, especially, he had that.
Well, I think
Big
in
brother relationship
season
with Omega.
2 they were almost trying, because I feel like they have a confusion of what Hunter versus Wrecker's story is with Omega, because they both.
Yeah, there's a lot of muddling of it.
There's a lot of muddling. They both kind of fill that role, which is just odd. Like, we need almost defined roles for both of them.
This is really exciting to be on the same side of you as on something for once. I think this is the first time we've ever really been like agreeing with each other. It's nice.
It is nice. I like you, Luke. I love you, Luke. Actually,
I love you too.
is that you're done? You done so?
That's your number 6?
Yeah,
Who do you got?
he's a little one note. Doesn't look that good.
Who do you got
Wrecker's
bringing
my
up the
number
rear,
6.
Matthew?
So for number 6 for me, and this sounds like I'm not might be a hater. I know there's a lot of hate around this character, but I absolutely do not hate her. Is Omega for number 6. The only reason being is that if we're looking at season 1 and 2 as a whole, in season 1, I didn't mind her. In season 2, she's still developing, but she is so cool in season 2, right? She has her bow. She understands. I mean, she's like dealing with lost left and right and understanding kind of this bigger picture. I love that episode towards the end of the season where she's friends with those that little girl on the island as well.
Pabu, yeah.
So cool. And so that stuff I want to see more of. In season 1, I feel like they didn't really know what to do with her as much. So as a character, she's still developing. And
It's hard when your character is such a plot device to really give her an arc.
and that's my only problem with her realistically. And then the core thing I would want from the Bad Batch, which we're never gonna get, which I consistently talk to Max about, is I just want the 5 of them to go around doing cool stuff. And obviously now, more than ever, we're definitely not gonna get that.
Definitely not 5.
In light
Exactly.
of recent events.
Exactly. But even then, it's like in season 1, I was like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to get at least half a season with all 5 of them before Crosshair turns or something. And we didn't even get that. So solely that's just in the Clone Wars, unfortunately. But even then, Echo is like a new addition. So we never really get the Bad Batch as the Bad Batch for a long period of time. And so, unfortunately for Omega, in my opinion, I guess is the plot device to destroy that dream of mine.
Well, we're just general structure of the podcast. We're not going to be able to go like in order 6 through 1 because we're all saying our things on each character and we're going to have the same characters. So
That's true.
I'll go ahead and jump to my number 1 because it is Omega, and
Oh,
we're,
Whoa.
we're going to start disagreeing now. I love
6 and 1.
Omega, not because she has the most amazing character arc. I think it's about the same as all the other characters. I don't really care for any of their arcs in general.
Yeah.
As a single character arc, but every time she's on screen, the possibilities are endless. I'm very interested every time she's on screen. She may be force sensitive. She may meet Hera and form a friendship. She may meet Boba Fett, and that's her twin brother. And it's just the possibilities are endless. And I gave a lot of credence to the aesthetic of her, not because she looks cool or has cool armor, but I am a sucker for a bow and arrow. I love her energy bow. That I just think is the coolest weapon in all of Star Wars.
Sounds like Luke's got a crush. I'm kind of like in between you guys, which is interesting because I have her as my number 4 spot.
4, okay.
I don't have her quite that high because it's like there are definitely more interesting characters than her whenever it's on screen. But to Luke's point, what he said when you were speaking, Matt, she is like a major like plot device, and so I can't put her at 6 or 5 because every time that there is an episode about her, you're like, oh, good, like this is what I'm here for. Like I want to know more about this. Like how did we get her? She is a female clone. Like what happened? Especially at the end of season 2 when they find out that there's also another Omega or whatever
Another
her
female
name
clone,
is.
yeah.
So there's just so much intrigue surrounding her that I couldn't put her in my bottom. I put her solidly in the middle. I'm in between you guys. I put her at number 4.
Interesting. Okay, do you want to go with your number 5 then?
Yeah, my number 5 was Hunter. Luke, you said he was number 6.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't disagree
my number
too
5
much.
was Wrecker, so we're really in the same
Yeah,
boat.
that's
Those-
kind of
those two are the
around
bottom of
same,
the
around
pale
the
for
same.
us.
I put Hunter a little bit higher for the aesthetic.
That's fair.
Hunter's number 5 for me as well. He's the leader, period, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I think they're confused to kind of where he's going to go, which is totally fine. Which also leads me to my number 4, which is also Wrecker.
Okay, I was going to
Because-
ask, where's Wrecker then?
Yeah, they're just like fun, goofy characters, and I feel like both of them for some reason are muddled as like again, like the father to brother figure to Omega.
And this doesn't really apply to any of the other Bad Batch too, but it's also the voice. Wrecker's voice, like after he like speaks
Yeah.
for long enough, it's like kind of like Hermit the Froggy, and you're just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like I
Yes.
kind of get
I
tired
know
of
what you
hearing him
mean.
speak
I like
after a
it.
while.
I don't fault it, but I know what you mean.
All right, so we're all kind of in agreement that
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. So we
Hunter,
all
Wrecker,
got
and
Tech.
Omega at the
Omega's
bottom.
been the big difference so far.
Yeah, Omega's really the only difference.
Yes.
We all got Tech, Crosshair, and Echo as our top 3. Save Omega's number 1 for me. So
Yes, so
where you got was your number 3, Matt?
my number 3 is Echo himself. I think Echo is obviously a sad character. You kind of feel bad for him. He's, but he also is able to do whatever he wants. Right? He has a purpose. He has that direction. He leaves the Bad Batch in order to go with Rex. Right?
That was a shocking decision.
was.
I thought that was more shocking than Tech dying, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Oh,
Which I
really?
had that spoiled for me, so maybe that's not very fair.
That's definitely
but
why.
I really did not think that Echo was just gonna up and leave. Like
Yeah.
that's a great story beat for him.
And I think that is the turn where I really started liking Omega, is like her dealing with that loss of Echo. But I think Echo also is really cool in his design. I love his helmet. That is also just kind of part of his head a little bit. He
Yeah.
is able to do like droid functions. He's a sad character. He's got like a lot of depth to him as well. The only thing is I wish he actually had more lines. And like I think in general, the Bad Batch is a really cool concept. I really like all of them, but I wish there was a little bit more to do with them. And I think
Like inner conflict between the members.
inner conflict between the members or anything sort of. I feel like we kind of skipped them being, again, the Bad Batch. Like what I'm saying kind of is, I feel like in season 1, it could have been a 4-season thing. I think 3 is too small, like too short of a season or a series, but like 4 is perfect, like with Rebels. So it's like in season 1, if we get all of them kind of going on the missions, and at the end of it, finding Omega. Omega is then introduced in season 2. Like as a full character, they kind of save her. Season 3 is kind of where we're at with season 2. Tech dies, Echo leaves. So there's a little bit of a build up because all of a sudden it's like I feel like we haven't understood who they are and that inner dynamic, and now all of a sudden they're disband before we can start.
I agree with you in terms of Echo for season 1. I thought Echo was criminally underused in season 1, but then
Yeah.
season 2 they completely course corrected, and Echo I have him as number 2. I really liked all of Echo's
I have
scenes.
Echo's number 2 as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
He was really in it this
He
season.
looks
right
sick
from
and
the
he
beginning.
Can, he
as
can
soon as it
stomp
started,
into the terminals with his arm.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
we've
That's
never
awesome.
seen. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
That's droid shit right
Yeah.
there.
And the way his
Yeah.
helmet the way his helmet functions too, with his like his head piece
Yes.
thing, it's so cool.
It's my
That's
second
why I
favorite
had to say
helmet.
aesthetic was like one of the first things that I
Yeah.
said because his is pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely my second.
he's probably my favorite character design
It's
of the batch.
I kind of disagree with what you were saying earlier though about how you just want to like see the Bad Batch like just go on
Yeah.
missions and stuff because it's something that we talk a lot about Mandalorian too. I'm not a huge fan of like the story of
yeah.
the day, like
Not
they go
even-
off on an adventure, they resolve it, and then they come back home. I want to see an overarching story, and I think that's why I had Omega a little bit higher than you
Yeah.
because I feel like she is that overarching story.
I guess not even side missions because I also don't want that because that's my least favorite part of the Bad Batch is when they do these random side missions with Sid, which I'm kind of glad they nixed this season and got Wanda Sykes' character in there to go on missions with and stuff too. 'Cause
I felt
think
just as unenthused with Wanda Sykes as I was with Sid. I thought there was no real difference there.
And that's the thing. I think I wish that they had like a more tight story, and maybe it is. I don't know. I feel like them defecting is really interesting, and we only get a little bit of that, and I kind of wish that was like a bigger thing that we actually dealt with.
It makes more sense though because I feel like that format does lend itself more to like the animation.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's
Yeah,
not its fault.
form
That's
of
just my.
storytelling.
That's just me
Yeah.
being.
Yeah, this
a
does
stickler.
this does go right back to our discussion on the Mandalorian because I am all for the episode of the week, especially with the Bad Batch, more so than the Mandalorian, because this era is so ripe to explore, like the transition from Republic to Empire, especially
Yeah.
from a Clone Troopers perspective. I love
Yeah.
seeing those random one-off episodes, and it's like they get their inhibitor chips removed and all the implications with that.
That stuff's really cool. But then we get like a random racing episode. But I did like that random racing episode.
I love that episode.
Besides
too.
when I listen to the
not
soundtrack.
pod
Not
racing.
pod racing.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I listen to the soundtrack, I have to skip that though. It's because it's like 90s techno. And it's like, what is like? It's not
I didn't notice the first time I listened to it. You said something about it afterwards.
Did I really? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's really distracting to me. Anyway, so do you want to go with your number 2? Does anybody have like a strong opinion on their number 2? Mine changed consistently.
My number 2 was Echo, so I just have 3, 4.
Oh, okay.
Tech Crosshair. I put Crosshair as higher. I think
Wait, what's
I,
your 3?
I like Crosshair more than Tech.
Oh shit.
So
okay.
Crosshair's 3, Tech 4.
Okay.
Crosshairs.
3, Tech 4.
Okay. I had Tech as 3.
I have Crosshair as number 2 because now I'm at number 2. Crosshair is one of those characters for me that like I really dislike in season 1. Obviously, great. It's kind of the whole device, but you have to respect his opinion. He's almost like the anti-Echo, kind of defecting with the Empire. But then also in season, I found myself loving every episode that he's in.
I know. I wonder. I had a hard time deciding if that was because I like Crosshair as a character or because his episodes are just so incredible every time.
Yeah.
Because, well, you start to see that crack when he saves Mayday.
Mhm.
And then the Vulture circling around, you get that story where Mayday says that the Vulture has basically been picking the dead off, which is so intense for a kids show, basically. Right? Like it is a cartoon. And then he just like blasts that First Order officer, and it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And
that
I think
is why I have Crosshair as number 1.
yeah, Crosshair's always been your favorite too, right?
He has been, yeah, ever since the beginning. Ever since
yep.
the Clone Wars story arc where we first introduced to him and he was still a good guy. I was like, oh, Crosshair, he's gonna be the best one. He's gonna be my favorite.
Mhm.
And then as soon as the Bad Batch started, he immediately turned evil, and I was like, oh man. But he still hold on to that number 1 rank for me because every time it's a Crosshair episode, I got excited. I was like,
it's
oh,
captivating.
Crosshair.
I also think he had one of the best plot twists in the last couple of years of Star Wars when you find out that he did get his interpreter chip removed,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
he's just actually fundamentally misaligned with the rest of his brothers.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a great twist.
And that's why he's so good versus someone like Hunter, who is very middle of the line. But Crosshair consistently surprises you. You have like big payoffs with him. And he's got such a cool power too.
So you had Luke, you had Omega as number 1. Where did you have Crosshair?
Number 3.
Number 3. So you got starting next season, your 1 and 3s are going to be off doing their own thing. That'll be exciting for you, huh?
Yes, I'm very excited for next season.
I'm because that is one thing that I wanted to bring up is
The
the ending of season 2 and how the season 3 is likely to start. Obviously, we don't know yet. I haven't heard any rumors or anything, but I'm very excited for the Crosshair Omega dynamic.
Same. I 1000% agree. That's gonna be really interesting. I wonder how long it's gonna last. If they're gonna be off on their own. Going back one step real quick is I feel like Crosshair was also super underutilized in season 2. Besides the end. But it's one of those things that like I'm not even thinking about because the ending of his storyline was so interesting.
Mhm.
But like he's like kind of virtually gone in
Yeah.
season 2. He has a couple episodes by himself, but that is going to be a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I had him as my number 1, so obviously I would have liked to have seen him more.
Yeah,
I think he's the coolest. I also really like his aesthetic. I think he's the
very
best
cool.
combination of like that kind of cool, practical, but still like very distinct. Like, are we moving on to number 1s? I already want
move
to.
on to number-
I already
Let's
want
talk
to.
Tech. I'm ready.
I already want to attack Matt.
Oh, okay, yeah. So number 1 for me has always been Tech. I really like Tech. I don't know if I can relate to him. I don't know if it's because he's the only character in Star Wars that wears glasses, as do I, Max, and then currently Luke, who I believe usually wears contacts.
No, I just recently got glasses for the first time. Thanks
Never
for
mind.
noticing.
Yes, you sent me a picture of yourself a couple days ago, and I was like, Luke
The
has glasses.
state of Ohio literally required him to, or he could not drive.
That is
Well,
not true, but it
I'm-
was close.
I'm glad you got glasses. So, and he also kind of looks like Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler from Batman the Animated Series. So I think all of those combinations kind of lead him
Because the hairline.
kind of, and I respect the hairline. Let's not get into it. Lead him to my number 1, but also I think he's got the coolest helmet. He is the helmet that I built, which as well, he's on my shelf. I really love that helmet. I like his visor. I like his powers. He's very brash. He's smart. He's the brains of the group, unlike me. But he was also the pilot, so he's really multi-versatile. I feel like they actually, even though he doesn't have a lot to do in season 1, I would say, he is always around because he has a million different positions in that group.
Yeah.
And then in
Yeah,
season
high impact.
Yeah.
yes, and then
yeah.
in season 2, really once he dies, it's such a great death.
Oh yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking when they throw him, they throw the goggles, and it's like, okay, that kind of solidifies it. I think Luke has a different opinion. But before that, you really can look and see how he's becoming more open with Omega, right? They have that great scene together when he's like, just because I don't show my emotions doesn't mean I don't feel them, which I love that scene.
Mhm.
But even before that, it's like, oh yeah, Tech is utilized a lot in season 2 because he dies at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
Even the pod racing episode.
I really like the pod racing episode because it was like a twist because I thought I was really excited to see a lot of development out of Omega and she was gonna like put her life on the line for these people and then Tech did it and I was like, oh my god, this is actually a Tech episode. That's great.
Yeah, 1000% agree. What are your thoughts on Tech 2? I feel like you were going to say something.
I thought the pod racing episode was only okay. No, I like Tech a lot. I agree. I think he is very versatile. He's the brains of the operation. He's the pilot, and I wanted to come out the gate and say, how could you have not been taking aesthetic into account? Because Tech is definitely the coolest.
Yeah.
He
Really?
definitely
I
has
think
the
Echo-
best helmet.
I think Echo has a cooler helmet.
Really?
Echo?
I like the narrow visor. Yeah.
No,
Well, to be
the way-
fair, you're new to glasses, so you'll
That's true. I did not value that very highly.
trust me. When he came on screen, he had glasses in Clone Wars. I was like, that's my guy.
But he has like two though. He has like the glasses / goggles underneath, and then
visor.
he has the visor that comes down underneath it, and it has like a heads-up display and
It's
everything.
very cool. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
And like
that,
the two big earpieces on the side. I'm kind of looking at your shirt for reference because
Oh,
you're wearing
yeah.
a Bad Batch T-shirt right now.
I had a costume
but-
change.
It Tech
These aren't released in
definitely
order.
has the coolest helmet.
I really like the aesthetic of Tech. I like the aesthetic of all of them. I also like the straight cojones that it took for the creators of this show to say we're gonna make a movie about just general archetypes of soldiers that everyone knows, and we're gonna really lean into it. And then we're gonna take those same characters and then give them complete arcs, and you're gonna end up loving them in spite of how generically the same that you would expect them to be.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Tech is the smart one, and he has a British accent, and he wears glasses. And then Crosshair has a crosshair tattooed on his face, and it's like their design is so obvious that it was frustrating at first, and then they came around and made me love it anyway. It took a lot to do, but I like that they did it.
I disagree that it was ever frustrating. I always liked the aesthetic of them. I agree
Really,
with the
I was a little bothered
archetypes.
with
It
how
was-
on the nose and like
It
maybe
was they did
Hunter
like,
just looks like Rambo.
they
Yeah.
did very common archetypes. Like Hunter is the leader. He also has his weird tracking skills, which, like Matt said earlier, doesn't really ever come into effect.
It just kind of when he's needed.
Yeah,
And
then,
he has the Spidey sense.
yeah.
It's like, a storm's coming. It's like, "Ooh, is that what you do? Is that weird?
How helpful is that? I think I have an app that does that.
Oh, if I went out of the house and knew it was going to storm, I would bring a windbreaker all the time. Honestly, the most practical.
But yeah, like Tech is the smart one, Wrecker is the dumb big one, Crosshair is the sharpshooter. But what would you say Echo is? That's why I like Echo so much, because I feel like
He's like the
He's
puppy.
the cyborg.
Yeah, he's the.
But you say that
sympathetic
like that's a
one.
common archetype. though. That's
true,
not
I
like,
guess.
oh, you know how every group has a cyborg.
Yeah,
I think that's
fair.
I think that's the weird dynamic with the group. But I think he's also like he's the kid brother. He's the last one in. They saved him, right? He's
I think
kind of
he was going to be the kid brother, but that has been defaulted now to Omega instead.
yes. I think that's my thing too.
Hmm.
Is I'm like, wait, why do we I feel like season 1 needed to be different.
No, I like that they got right into it. I would have been a little
Yeah.
annoyed with a series or the first season of being just Adventure of the Week. Like,
Not
because we,
even
'cause we did
Adventure of
get
the
that in the
Week,
Clone
just,
Wars.
yeah, I think that's true. I guess because they're in 7 episodes of Clone Wars, correct?
I thought just 4, but I guess I don't know.
I thought it was 3.
Oh God,
They're only in the final season.
Riff. I'm gonna Google Riff.
I'm going to go ahead and commit. It's 4.
It
'Cause
is 4.
Season 7 had 4 episodes with the Bad Batch, then 4 episodes with the Martez sisters, then 4 episodes with the...
I guess
Siege
that
of
makes sense. There was
Mandalore.
only 3 story arcs,
Mhm.
and I guess they did not have 9 episodes, did they? So that probably wouldn't make the most sense. Matt will verify here in a second. But yeah, that's why I like Echo so much, because it's like he's always kind of like the odd one out. Like Matt said, he was the last to the group. He isn't like a real Bad Batch member, you know, like he wasn't like born different or anything like that. Like he's defective or whatever, defected, just because of like circumstances that happened to him in his
He's
life.
able to bring a new perspective, which the show definitely needed beyond Omega, because she's just kind of a wet sponge. Like the rest of the batch needed a character to kind of butt heads with,
Yeah.
and I really thought we were going to get that in season 1, but I love what we got in season 2. Like right from the premiere of season 2, with Echo trying to convince Hunter that they should be doing more. I love Echo's story arc.
So anyway, so we kind of got all of our lists out. Does anybody have any additions or anyone want to change it around? I
hold on.
assume not.
It was kind of all over the place. Go
It was
one at
indeed.
a time. Luke, go from 6 to 1.
Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Crosshair, Echo, Omega, which they're all of our lists are really similar. Omega being the one glaring difference.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Mine
all
and
have like
yours.
same kind of like tiers. Like if we broke all of ours down to like 3 different tiers,
Yeah.
top, mid, and bottom, I think they're all the same except for Omega. That is the big one.
I do
Maxwell
like
was-
Omega.
She
Um,
is cool. They're all cool.
Yeah. I
I
don't.
mean,
dislike
obviously
any
we
of
all
them.
like the show, so
Yes, correct. Max, what was yours?
Mine was from 6 to 1. Number 6, Wrecker. 5, Hunter. 4, Omega. 3, Tech. 2, Echo. 1, Crosshair.
Mine is 6 Omega, 5 Hunter, 4 Wrecker, 3 Echo, 2 Crosshair, and 1 Tech. My glasses boy. So, 2 quick things is what will it take to make the other characters a little higher on your list? And I guess in light of Tech's presumed death, will Tech lower at all, being out of presumably 16 full episodes?
No,
Tech
because his
was-
death was so good that if
Yeah.
anything, I thought I did not want to artificially inflate him on my list
Yes.
just because of how awesome his death was.
I did. I think he would have been 5 or 6 if it weren't for his death.
5 or 6.
Oh my god.
Where
Yeah,
did you? Where did
I
you? end up
really
putting
like.
him
I really
again?
like his death. He ended up on 4. I'm not.
Interesting.
So he's
Yeah,
not going any
as
higher,
high.
presumably. for
he,
you.
he will definitely not go.
It's hard to
He'll
go
definitely
up.
not go higher for me. But he did
Interesting.
sneak up 1 or 2 spots there at the end because I do love his
Mhm.
final moments.
I think seeing a little more character development out of Wrecker. Like I said, he's my number 6. He's just kind of too one note to me.
He was crushing it in season 1. He made Omega that stuffed animal. That was awesome, and he made her a room. He was such a nice big brother to her. And then-
1,000%. I think the same thing. Hunter just needs to. I think in season 3 we're going to see a big dynamic shift, right? Because there's literally only 3 of them now, depending if Echo comes back or not. And so I think we're gonna. Well, there's only 2 of them technically with Omega right now, and then we'll see if Echo comes back in full force in full time with them, and then obviously what happens with Crosshair too. But I think we'll see a big shift in general. Do you think so? Do you think at the bottom line, do you think Tech is officially dead? Because I would say yes.
I would not be surprised if he came back. I thought he was more dead than I did after the guy brought back his glasses. That like he recovered his body. This guy's a clone scientist, and he wanted the Bad Batch to experiment on them. Like I don't see why he would just leave his body there. And if they have his body, they can bring him back one way or another. If he's not completely dead anyway.
Will they commit? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ooh.
I
I'm
know-
gonna say no.
I know I committed to no as well. I would like him to come back, but just because I like Tech, but for story wise, I don't see it happening.
I see. Here's the thing. I'm gonna say no. They're not gonna bring him back, and
Mhm.
here's why. Because his death was already amazing. They don't need
It's
to
so
do
good.
it any better than that. They don't need to bring him back for any reason. I don't think. The next season is their last season. They're winding
Yeah.
down, and I mean, what happens to the Bad Batch? What is their ultimate fate? We don't.
That was
know.
my last question.
I
yeah.
think all of them are eventually going to have to die.
Yeah, I agree. I think Omega's going to be the one who kind of goes off, right? And is going to be able to either we'll get a spinoff with her, she's going to show up another IP, something. But yeah, I think the Bad Batch will one by one kind of die. And if
Really?
yeah, or Echo goes with Rex and is never seen again.
But Echo doesn't come back in
Rebels?
Rebels.
Yeah.
He's not a part of Rex's crew. Because I was thinking
Oh,
about that
man.
when
They're
Echo
all
went
dead.
away with Rex.
That does it.
I was thinking, for some reason, it hit home to me when Echo went to be with Rex. I was like, but he's not part of the Rebels crew when we see him later, so he's going to die. And then I was
Yep.
like, wait a minute. We don't see any of these characters in anything else again. So I think they're going to have to somehow die.
I agree. I think they also have the rapid aging as clones in general, and obviously
Mm-hmm.
in season 2 a big thing is like kind of how they treat clones in after they're kind of done with the war itself, and obviously they're unneeded in kind of that world. So in general, I feel like they're all kind of gonna go, and they're kind of sad characters in general. I mean, their name is literally the Bad Batch, but I think that wraps it up on the Bad Batch.
I will say one more
Ranked.
thing. The only thing you didn't mention it, but you guys disagree that Tech will come back. I think the biggest reason that he won't come back, if he wasn't to come back, is because his story would be the exact same as Echo. Because we already had
That's
a
true.
clone pretty explicitly die, and then he came back as a experimented on by the bad guys.
So are
kinda
you coming
thing.
back on our side now?
No, I still think it'll happen, and I think it'll be really close to Echo's story.
You think they'll double down? All right, that sounds good. All right, well, that wraps up Force for Thought, the Bad Batch ranked. You can find all of us on Force for Thought on Twitter and Instagram. You can find myself at Phil Mowski on social medias if you want to. If not, that's okay too. I
You
don't
can
mind
find
being
me-
left alone.
You can find me on Twitter at KitFistoblog or TikTok at LilChili99.
And you can find me on Twitter at MaxterJedi.
Until next time, I'm just like talking Star Wars with you guys too. It's been a lot of fun,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I have a feeling we'll do this more.
and they never recorded it again.